Hi everyone, welcome to Inspire Her Series. This is the third edition of Inspire Her Series, and I am glad to be with you on this Saturday. Thank you for joining us from the very beginning. We've learned from Ijoma Adeson, Adesonya, we've learned from Zainab Haruna, and today we're going to be learning from a distinguished marketing professional. Her bio has been in the community for days now, and many of you have read about her. You know what to expect, you know who you're expecting. So, this person has over 16 years' experience in communications and marketing. She's that person you want to speak with. So, beyond staying power, she understands the terrain. She's been there, she's played as an actor, a senior actor, a stakeholder. So she's going to be telling us how her journey has been. She didn't just get to the top, she climbed up. So in the course of her journey up, a lot of things have happened. She's learned, she's made mistakes, she's been successful in certain areas, and she didn't also have expected results in some areas. It's something you could consider to be failure. But then not everybody considers they are not getting their desired results failure. It could be a lesson that propelled them forward. Today I'm bringing up Langley. She's going to be telling us how it has been. This is the moment you've been waiting for, and this is the time you need to write, pen, decide actions, and after now you work towards it. So welcome with me, Larry. Hello.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, Larry. Good evening.
Hi.
How you
Good
doing
evening. Thank
today?
you for having me. I'm fine. I'm very well.
We're glad to have you, and we're also excited about how demure you are, right? It was the word for last year. You're embodying it today. Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
read about you, but then we also like you to introduce yourself. How would you like to introduce yourself? We know there are people that are just catching on with us immediately, and they might not have the time to go back to go to the whole reading. So, who are
Mm.
they meeting and who's speaking to them?
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Lanre Odufua, as you already know, and probably there on the screen. Thank you, Inye. Thank you very much. And thank you for bringing me on as a part of this. I've followed through since you began this series, and I'm always, as I always say, well done. You're doing really great. I love what you're doing for the community, trying to build young ladies. I'll just go right into it. My name is Larry, as I said before. I work in marketing communications. I've worked in marketing communications for 16 years plus. I started my career as an executive in an activation agency, event agency, and I worked in the agency space for about 14 years before I crossed over to brand management and crossed over to Airtel Nigeria, where I currently work. Over the course of my career, I've worked in events, activations, advertising, digital marketing, trade marketing. I've tried to touch a lot of the a lot of the bases and a lot of the different parts of marketing communications. What else? I know you already had the bio. Outside of marketing, outside of brand communication, I do a lot of mentoring. I enjoy mentoring. I enjoy forums like this, where we can all come together and build each other. Outside of that as well, I'm a fragrance collector. So, not just perfumes, home fragrances. I find it very fascinating. And yeah, I love cooking as much as I love eating. So, that's pretty much it.
Interesting. I love the part of, yeah, I love cooking as much as I love eating. So it's not just about eating, just about making the food. I like how you just broke down the data about your work and how it has been. Like,
Mm,
you have been in in agency for 14 years. That's plenty.
It is. It
Yes.
is.
Wait, how are you able to stay for that long?
I think that if you enjoy what you're doing, the time passes by very quickly. Because sometimes when I think back, it doesn't seem that long to me. But it's times when you have to maybe update your bio or update your resume or for something, and then you look and you realize, wow, I've been doing this for that long. But in the sector, in practicing um, on the job, working on the job rather, it didn't feel that long. But of course, I did get to a point where I knew I had been there for a long time and I needed to do something different. And that's why I then decided to pursue brand marketing and then cross over to at least see what happens on the side of the people who employ me as an agency.
Okay. So how does this agency work? Is it that you are working with a marketing agency, or you had an
Yes.
agency and you're working with an agency?
Oh no, I did. I worked with several marketing agencies at different points, not owning my own agency. So I worked with several marketing agencies along the line.
Oh, so for this 14 years, it's not as if you were in one company. You were in
No,
other companies as well.
absolutely.
Let me calm down a bit because I was wondering. It's a very
No,
long
for
time. We may
14 years, a bit of is a bit of a stretch to be in the same place.
yes.
I mean, I did grow through the ranks, and so it didn't seem like I was doing the same thing over and over again. Because the truth is, what you're doing when you start out as an executive isn't the same thing that you're doing when you grow up to, say, when I became client service director. Is also not the same thing when I grew up to the point of general manager. So at every point, except you're not growing, when you're growing, your role changes, so you're in the same sector but the scope of your work expands, and then you start to do other things, and then at some point you even find that the things that you were doing when you started off you're not doing anymore. You're bringing up people who will do those things.
Yes. So I think that that's the beauty of it, because if it were just doing the same thing for 14 years, you would I think somebody might just feel like I can't keep up. But then my question
Absolutely.
is, why did you decide to go into the agency? Was it like after school or something you just got into from NYSC, or when did you make the decision?
I mean, I always wanted to work in advertising, and I spent
Okay.
probably about 2 years looking for the perfect advertising agency, and it just never came. And then somewhere along the line, I stumbled into activations and events. I started it, and I quite enjoyed it. I liked it. And eventually, the advertising craze died down, and I decided to embrace what I had at the time because what I wanted wasn't coming. I found something else, and I figured I might as well just, make the best use of what I have and grow. And eventually, I did end up doing advertising, but it was much later, and I honestly don't feel like I missed out on anything.
Oh, awesome. So you said you waited for 2 years. Were you doing something else while you were searching?
Yeah, so after school, I knew that I wanted to work in marketing. So I went on to do a master's in marketing, and even during the course of doing the master's program, I found advertising to be the part that drew me the most out of all the different aspects of marketing that there are. So even when I got my first job, which was in activations and events, I was still going on to look for that perfect advertising job that I wanted. But for some reason, it didn't happen. But when I got stuck on activations and events, I started to enjoy it, and eventually I just completely forgot about advertising.
Well, so it's about planning what you wanted, and then you now decided to do what's available, and it's now bringing you into the original thing you wanted. So how
Absolutely.
were you now able to grow through the ranks? Because this was not originally the mainstay for you. Because I don't know, you said at some point you stopped searching. So for you to be working on this and you still have your eyes outside, were you distracted? Did it affect your focus on the job? Something.
Oh no, not at all. So I think that if you're searching for something, you stumble into something else. I believe that wherever I find myself, whatever it is I find myself doing, I have to give it my best. So I wasn't distracted at all because I knew that I was in a space where I had to grow, I had to make a name for myself. I had to show people what I was made of because again, if I did eventually find that advertising job, I would require a reference. I would require work experience, something that I can go in with as something that I have. So I knew that I couldn't be distracted. And when I say I was searching, it didn't mean that, I was literally walking around carrying folders and, knocking on doors looking for jobs. It's just that every time that an opportunity came up or I heard about something, I would push myself forward for the role. But in the meantime, while I was working in activations and events, I put in everything to make sure that I was if I wasn't perfect, I was as good as I needed to be and some more.
Oh, so if you weren't perfect, you were as good as you needed to be. That means perfection for your
Absolutely.
own level. Oh, that's great. So at the time when you were into this, I don't think social media was a thing. So what were the strategies you were using to stay ahead?
So social media wasn't really a big deal when I started. In fact, I don't think that a lot of people were focused on putting their businesses on social media. I mean, I did work at a digital marketing agency much later in my career, but even then, it was mostly content management that we were doing. And it wasn't as big as what it is now. However, with the kind of job that I was doing, with the kind of marketing that I was doing, it was offline. And I mean, it's also as impactful. I don't want to say more impactful because you're doing marketing where you're facing the consumers face to face, you're talking to them, you're selling directly to them, unlike advertising where the message is out there. You really don't have a perfect measurement of how many people have seen your advert, how many people have seen the billboard. And another thing is, it doesn't really ensure that they take any action. That's not really what sells your product. That contact with your consumers will always be important, and that's what I was doing. And back then and even till now, I would imagine the most important thing for us was it was experiential marketing. So you had to create an experience. So if I'm selling water, for example, how do I sell water to make it look like such a fantastic, big deal for people that they wanted to? So it wasn't just, I'm carrying a bottle of water and I'm saying, buy my water. I'm creating an experience for you. You're living the brand, I'm giving you everything that you need to be an advocate for my brand, such that by the time you finish maybe sampling the product, trying it out, you believe what I say. You give consumers a reason to believe, and it's that reason to believe that then makes them take that action. It's that reason to believe that makes them, after taking that action, recommending you to other people, becoming your advocates without you even paying them for it. So I think then the strategy was we relied on creating unique experiences for consumers because at the time that's what we had, and we had to use it the best way that we could.
Oh, amazing. Creating unique experiences for consumers. And at the time, people were interfacing with consumers. So you go to locations, you get to see them. I think these things still happen,
Oh
but
yes, it does.
it's something young people are not so interested in. Do you think there's a reason they are not so interested in the worker about marketing, or they feel there's something else?
I mean, I think that as time changes, you have to change with time. And the measure of a good brand manager, of a good marketing manager, is to keep up with trends. So you keep up with consumer trends. If you find that your consumers for the exact kind of product that you are selling, you mostly find them in stores, then it doesn't make sense for you to go to the open market. If you find that a lot of them, they congregate at concerts, they congregate at, even if it's online. Truth of the matter is, depending on what your product is, depending on what your service is, you need to understand your consumer. You need to understand where you can find them. You need to understand what interests them. Because, I mean, data is very important. I believe in working with data. I don't believe in working blindly. And with data, you get who your consumers are, what they're interested in, keep up with trend. And if the consumers are leaning a lot, and that's what we find now, that everybody is on digital, then you have to look for a way to make that space work for you. I mean, it doesn't mean that you should then exclude all the other forms of marketing. You need to find a balance. And for me, the most important way of, finding that balance is to put most of your efforts where you will find the bulk of your consumers. So I don't, the digital space doesn't work for everybody. It doesn't work for every kind of product. And that's the truth of the matter. I mean, digital is what's winning now. Digital is what everybody is leaning towards. But however, there are still, products and services that digital won't do a lot for. It's just important for you to know what works for you as a brand.
Oh, great. So put much of your effort where you can find the bulk of your consumers. So that's
Absolutely.
to say that you cannot be selling to people online when the people who you cannot be selling your product online when the people using your products don't even have phones. It's going
Absolutely.
to be
Absolutely.
counterproductive.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
So, for example, if
as
you're
okay.
selling, sorry, if you're selling, say, for example, you're a microfinance bank, I imagine that you are
Yes.
dealing with people with small businesses, and dealing with people with small businesses is not just the people online. You need to go into the open market to find these, underbanked, unbanked people who also need to open your account. So imagine if all your effort was on the internet, and you have this large group of people that you've excluded because you're trying to keep up with trend, as opposed to trying to understand where you can find your customers. So it's always creating a balance, really.
Yes. So knowing what works and then making sure it works for you as well. Because
Absolutely. Absolutely.
some persons might just say they're not interested in this kind of marketing. They already have like a category of marketing they don't have any business with. But that is what is serving the business or the organization they are working with. So in the course of probably changing from one role to the other, because you didn't
Mm.
stay in one place for 10 years,
No, I
even though the
didn't.
roles changed. Were there reasons, or what was the longest time you stayed with a particular organization, and what was the reason you decided to move on to the next one?
So that would be the job I had just before joining Airtel, and I think I was there for about 7 years, and that's the longest that I've ever stayed anywhere. And I believe that when you're in a place, you have to grow, and sometimes it gets to a point where you're not growing anymore, and you have to be conscious of that and know when you've gotten there and have a plan. So I started that job as I think a manager, and I I pretty much took a chance on a small business at the time. Moving on from one of the biggest agencies in Nigeria, I took a chance on joining a small business. And for me, it was a bigger challenge for me. And even if the company wasn't the one contributing to my growth, I had to invest in personal development to make sure that I grew through the ranks. And so, probably after a year, I went from being a manager to client service director a year or two after. moved to client service director, and probably after 2 years, if I remember, no, client service manager, client service director, and up until I became the GM of the agency. And then at that point, that's the highest that you can go, because you are then not planning to throw out the person who actually owns the company. And so I felt like I had grown up to the point where the next step was to either find what else I wanted to do or to start my own agency. And at the time, it wasn't what I wanted to do. I wasn't interested in starting my own agency. I wanted a new experience because I'd done the same thing for 14 years. I wanted to see what else happens in the other. Marketing is so large, and I felt like I had only seen a very little bit of what marketing is. And the brand manager role was probably the easiest way to get involved in other areas of marketing. And so I'm doing advertising. I did media management as well. I did traditional media, digital media. So I got exposure to other aspects of marketing, and I think that was a good decision for me. It was a good move. But again, I would say, even if you've done the same thing for 4 years, if there's still room for growth, I don't think that you should pay attention to how long you've spent. If there's room for growth, then you should stay and continue to grow. I'm not saying that there wasn't room for me to grow, but I just wanted something else.
Oh, awesome. So you're saying if you're within a particular space and then there's still room for you to grow, you can still remain there and be growing rather than going to somewhere else. But what is striking about what you said for me is the fact that you got into a new space and you decided to grow yourself. Now this is because this place is just starting and you're here to more like start it. So investing in yourself outside, how was it for you? Was this something you thought about a lot, despite the fact that, oh, I am investing in myself. I know I am doing this to also help the company. Is it Was it for you or for the company? So what was the drive at the time?
I think for me, the most important thing and what's worked for me was finding a mentor. I think everybody should have a mentor. And I was lucky enough to have one very early in my career. So at my second job, I think I had met somebody who I really looked up to. And what happens when you have a mentor who is in the same space as you, who is in the same career path as you see what they're doing and you really want to get there. You see this person grow, you see this person enter rooms where they're going and people are listening. You see them command respect, command regard. If they're talking in the industry, it's not possible to not mention them. You have somebody to look forward to being like. And I think for me, I'm one person who has always invested in continuous learning. So, being a member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, there's something called CPD. I know that they have it in other career paths as well, but it's just basically committing to doing different things, attending seminars, taking courses, webinars, anything at all. And what happens is when you commit to that, you know that you get points and you're building yourself up to a point where you then officially become a chartered marketer. And that's one of the things that I've done to ensure. I mean, you are paying to be part of the association, and if you're paying for something, you should make sure that that money doesn't go to waste. But aside the money isn't a lot of money, to be honest, but it was more important for me to grow. It's more important for me to keep up with trends in marketing. It's more important for me to be able to add more value to my clients, to not wait for them to say, oh, I want to do this. I want to be able to come up with things for them based on things that are going on in their industry, in the marketing space, in the consumer space. So I think that everybody should invest in continuous learning. And to be honest, continuous learning for me isn't just in the technical skills. Continuous learning should also be in soft skills. So there's a lot of times when people want to grow, you're paying attention to, oh, I want to do one course, I want to do one thing, but soft skills are also as important as those, academic things that you can build. There's things such as, crisis management that is not really the type that you go to school for, because again, there are probably courses related to that. There are skills that are personal skills, interpersonal skills that you have to build. You see this person, there's chaos in the office, and this person has a way of calming people down, immediately solving problems. There's things such as being very resourceful, such that you're in a situation where everybody is out of ideas, everybody's out of ways to make something work, and you're able to think up an idea for it to work. You're the person that building yourself to be that person that people call on when they need something, people call on when they require a solution for something. You have to also build other skills, because truth of the matter is, a lot of employers are not just employing you for that only. There are things such as empathy, knowing the difference between just being disciplined and being strict to, actually being empathetic and, leading with heart. There are so many other skills that I have learned to grow in over the years, and not just academic things. And I realized that a lot of these things have taken me really far. I mean, I've had, and it was interesting when you were saying something about you're sure that there are times when I failed during the course of my career, and it hasn't been all rosy. And when you said it, I smiled. And the reason I smiled was because I once went for an interview that went really badly, and it just happened to be one of the greatest experiences in my entire career, and one of the things that really built me, and also something that made me realize that technical skills aren't all that is important for you to go far. So I had an interview at a company. I was interviewing for a senior role at the time. I took a chance. It was there on LinkedIn. I'm like, okay, why not? I didn't know any. I knew a bit, not so much. And I went into that interview and I failed so badly that even me and the people on the panel, at a point, we were laughing, because it wasn't possible that somebody was getting answers so wrong. And at the end of the interview, the marketing director of the company had said, oh, is there anything else that you have to say? And we sat down, and he pretty much brought out a pen and paper and helped me map out my career, and helped me map out how to think realistically. And we ended up talking about how I could grow in my career. And he said, look, this job that you want, you're not there yet, but if you tell me what your plan is. And I said, oh, I want to be a marketing director by the time I'm 40. And he brought out a pen and paper and he drew the different steps that I had to go. And, I told him, oh, I had done a lot of research about him. I could tell him what country he was from. He wasn't Nigerian, how many languages he spoke. We ended up having a very fantastic conversation. And he had said to me that when the role that was more junior to what I wanted was open, he would love to recommend me for the role. And true to it, he did leave the organization maybe about a year after. And when that role was open, even though he wasn't there, they reached out to me because he had penned my name down to say this person was very strong in this role that wasn't as high as what she wanted, and if it did open, they should call me. But what happened was, by the time they got to me, I had grown past that role, because I took what he said to heart, and I started to build myself so much that by the time they were offering me the role, I had gone past that in my career and it wasn't something that I wanted. And so, it wasn't about, if it was about technical skills and, on the job, he would have just told me, bye, thanks for coming, such a failure. But I had other qualities that they liked, other qualities that made them still want to work with me when something else opened up. And that's why I don't think that people should only focus on, technical academic skills. You should also focus on building other areas of your life that will affect your career directly or indirectly.
Amazing. I love the fact that you shared this, because the reason I was asking that question was, some persons would say, "Oh, I'm going for this course. It's about personal development, but HR has to pay for it," or
Mm,
"HR, I want to do this, I want to do that, because I am going to use this knowledge to build the company."
mm,
So that's why I wanted to know, was it for you, or did you do it for for the organization you were leading at the time? And it's also great that you shared this interview experience, because some interviews can be very interesting at times, and not everyone is able to manage chaos. Some persons that
mm,
just feel like they felt very bad during the whole interview session, and they wouldn't want to know what they didn't do well, or
mm,
how they can do better. So when you took that guideline that was shared and you started
mm.
running with it, what did it become like the map for your growth, or did you do necessary adjustment? How were you able to find where you were at the time? Because at the point they reached back to you, you had grown past the place. That means you doubled up on a lot of things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I tried to become more active in the industry that I was. And becoming more active in the industry that you work in means that you're meeting more people, you're getting experiences outside of your environment. And it's harder to the higher you get in that kind of industry, the harder it is for you to think about growing because you feel like you're the boss, So when you get to the point of GM or MD, you're feeling like, okay, what else is there? And to be honest, when you say, was I trying to grow for myself or grow for the business? I will always say that it's both. Because if the client is coming to you for something, I want to be able to leave a place and clients are unhappy that I'm leaving because I've added value to them. They're asking me, oh, where else are you going so we can come there, you know you need to be able to add that kind of value, and you need to be able to have your name on something that works. I don't want to be the GM or client service director of a team that is failing. So I'm doing it for the organization. If the organization also does well, if you add value to the organization, that's when you get things like, you need to consider promotions, performance bonuses. And it's a good story for you to say, I started with these people and they were able to grow through these contributions that I've made. I don't want to be part of something that fails. I don't want to be part of a story of an unsuccessful organization. So apart from growing myself as an individual, I also want to be a success story of that organization. I want to be part of the success story. And for me to even be comfortable enough to remain in that organization, it means that the organization is doing well, and is doing well because people are putting in the work. And I want to be part of those people as well. I don't want to be part of, you also need to be able to be comfortable when you go out and they say, where do you work? There was a point in my career when people say, where do you work? I say, I work in Ikeja, because if I now tell you the name of the place
Was
I
it
work,
that bad?
Yeah, like, okay, what was that? What do they do? You know? And that's where I was when I started at the job. And I was like, I need to be able to. And so it got to a point where when people ask me, where do you work? I don't say I work in an agency in Ikeja. I say the name. And then when they say they've never heard of it, I'm able to tell them, it's possible you haven't heard of us, but we do good work. And when I start to reel out my clients, it's like, oh, interesting. Why haven't I heard of you guys? You know, as opposed to saying I work in Ikeja. I spent quite a while saying, where do you work? I work in an agency in Ikeja. And that's about it. And I also wanted to be confident in where I work. So even if people say they've never heard of me before, I can tell you what we do. I can tell you what we've achieved, as opposed to just saying I work in Ikeja and run away to the next person who will ask me where I work.
That's great. So you're not becoming so shy of the work because you know you've done great work that anybody who goes to do research, the person will be impressed. And even if
Absolutely.
they've not met you before, they are meeting you now and they're just seeing excellence. So you said you need to be able to have your name on something that works. I had to write that down because really everybody wants to identify with success, and you need to
Absolutely.
put in the work to be able to get the success you desire. So
Mm-hmm.
for the time when, more like your growth was for you, for the company, but even if it's not going to serve the company, it's serving you to be able to serve whoever is meeting you. So when you say you've almost gotten to the highest point within an organization, and it's almost feeling like there is no need to want to invest in your growth. Has there been a time when it seems like you've gotten to the highest, and for some reason you're going to somewhere, and you had to step down a little because there are other rankings? How are you able to cope within that space?
So there's something called, mindset shifts. You need to be able to think outside of what it is that you're doing. And I'll tell you something. So while you might get to the level of GM in an agency, if you go to a big company like Coca-Cola, you are not the same. You are not the same thing at all.
Yes.
So if I definitely walk into a room, so when they say, okay, I'm a client service director, it doesn't mean that I can join the association of directors, because it's not my type of director that they're looking for. So
Wow.
even if I manage to pad myself up to, be part of that association, of course, when I get there, I'm going to feel very intimidated, because I'm a director in a one-man business. I'm in the same room with, directors of multinationals. And that's where a mindset shift comes in. With mindset shifts, you have to it requires a lot of confidence in your ability, where you enter a space with people that are far above, and you're immediately able to change your speak the way you speak as a professional. You are able to rephrase or rebrand what you do as something else, where such that you go into that place and you don't feel like you're beneath people. In your mind, you know that if, for example, the person is earning 10 million naira, you're probably they're earning 850, but you are a director. You need to be able to think outside of where you are. You need to be able to shift your mindset, and that's where resilience comes in. You need to be able to adapt to wherever you find yourself, and make the best of the situation. So yes, there are times when I go into rooms where people that I'm supposedly supposed to be in the same position as are speaking, and I'm telling myself, I didn't even know this thing that they're talking about exists. And to be honest, what I immediately do is I'm writing things down. If I always have a notepad. I believe in actual pen and paper writing. So I usually have this small book that I carry around with me everywhere, and I'm writing those things down. But however, while you're in that space where you don't know what they are talking about, you need to be able to, as they say, to booga your way through. You know, when you are speaking, you are saying rubbish, but people are listening and nodding their head and they are wondering maybe they are the ones that don't understand the thing. You know, so even in the nonsense that you are speaking, even in the not knowing something, you know, that confidence gives you the respect for them to want to have more
Make
conversations
it
with
look
you.
like it makes sense. Yes.
Absolutely. Such that they are confused. Like, am I the one that, didn't read enough?
Maybe
Meanwhile,
this is
I
a
know
new
that
concept. I don't
what
know.
I'm saying is not, but I'm going and I'm pushing it in with confidence, such that, I'm not in that room. I'm not feeling like the poorest or feeling like, the least knowledgeable person. Confidence is so important and it takes time to build because whether we like it or not, at every point of your career, imposter syndrome is a thing. So even for me, I had a long period in my career where I always doubted myself and I always thought that I wasn't good enough. And when somebody said something or brought up an idea, I would ask myself, why wasn't I the person who, came up with that idea? And I remember sometime as a young executive, I'd gone for a meeting with my boss. We were supposed to be meeting with sales directors, from different states, all of them. But I'm thinking, I'm going with my boss. So, and we traveled all the way to Port Harcourt, if I remember. And so we're in a boardroom, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm beside my boss. So whatever happens in what I'm presenting, it could go anyway. And then they said, oh, because of how the room was arranged, I was going to be in the middle of the room. And everybody was going to be seated around me. And what that meant was I was backing my boss. And this is me, a young executive, only been in the job for maybe two
Wow.
years and I'm just there. And that's when I realized how much I knew, because I didn't need my boss in the meeting. I didn't need him for 1 second. And I wasn't shy, but because I wasn't confident in my ability and I didn't know how much I knew, clients didn't see me as that assertive, that they probably weren't expecting much, and such that at the time when I was going into the elevator to leave, the sales director of the company had said, wow, I didn't know you could do that. And then he leaves the elevator and it's just my boss, and my boss is like, you've arrived. And that was the first time that I really realized how much I knew and how much I could do and how much value that I actually brought to the organization. Because if there was a rumor at the time to say that they were letting people go, I would have been so sure that I was one of the people, until that defining moment where I then started to build confidence in myself. And working in my industry involved a lot of speaking, involved a lot of presentations. And it got to the point where sometimes when I even had presentations, I would learn to do the breathing exercise, breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it 7 seconds before I enter any room. I got to the point where I would just tell myself, they are human beings like you, they cannot beat you. Worst case, you will say nonsense, they will laugh, you will go. And that confidence is what, when you then say the nonsense, it's not funny. And they don't look at it as nonsense.
Yes. They just feel like, okay, maybe there's a
Maybe it's
different
another
perspective to what
perspective.
she's saying.
Exactly, exactly. But you yourself, that that thing I just said,
I
even me, I
missed
don't
something here.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, that's great. And then let me just take this question we have that is connected to imposter syndrome. So I just read
Mm,
it out. This person is saying, in my organization, I have people come to ask me questions and I answer them. But even me, myself, I struggle with certain things and I don't know why they bring their problems to me to answer when there are other people. So, what can you say to this person?
it's the same thing. You don't know what power you actually have. You don't know how much you know. You don't know how much you know, and that's when you then need to build confidence, because they're learning from you. And what you need, what you will realize then is, if you embrace it as that person that people come to, because if you don't have anything up there, they won't be coming to you. So you need to embrace it and accept that you know more than you think you know. Accept that you are doing better than you think you're doing. And I've learned not to admire anybody from far or be intimidated by anybody. Because I've had those instances where I finally meet the person and I'm like, "Mm, okay, no problem, it's okay." So for them to be coming to you, you have something. So just embrace it. Embrace it and leave it. Because you definitely have something, and that's why it's not one person coming to you, it's not two people. So they admire you, they look up to you for these things that they are coming to. So just embrace it and tell yourself that you are doing well for them to be coming to you. I mean, you don't need their validation, but it helps. It helps to know that you're valued. And just leave it as your truth is what you are. You know something that they don't know. They look up to you for something. So just own it. Don't feel like, small girl like me, why are they coming to ask me all these questions? If they didn't think that you could offer that value, they won't come to you. So just own it and tell yourself that you are actually doing better than you think you are.
Wow, awesome. So I hope this answers your question. Own it. You're valuable, and that's the reason they keep coming to you. Just like it happened with Larry. She for the person to tell her they didn't even know she could do that. That means they were all shocked. So it's just like you having the space, and then you eventually get to prove yourself. So don't be that person who would want to take the back seat when your work is now speaking in the front through someone else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
And
so
personal branding, and that's where personal branding comes in. You need to
okay.
position yourself as somebody who is valuable, somebody who is credible in not just where you work, but also in your industry. And that's when I said, it's important to join associations. It's important to join associations and be active in the associations. And so for me, then, part of the ways that I tried to grow and build myself was to join the Experiential Marketers Association of Nigeria. And so you find that you are not just a voice where you work, you are a voice in your industry. And it adds to your credibility. So it's personal branding is very important. You need to position yourself as a person who is valuable. And for you to position yourself that way, you need to even believe that you are that person. Personal branding is so important. Is as you are working on creating a brand, building a brand, you need to understand that you are also a brand. And every room that you walk into, every conversation that you engage in, you are selling that brand that is you. And so it's not being said enough. People need to invest in personal branding, and you require a lot of confidence to be able to build the brand that is you. You want to make a name for yourself. That's what we say. You making a name for yourself is building your brand. So everybody should see themselves as a brand. And what do consumers want in a brand? They want value. They want to be able to get something for the money that they're paying. You want people to be able to get something from the time that they're spending with you. Even if it's not professional, even if people are coming to you for something personal, it's part of your brand. We need to think outside of, not everything is professional. You impact people in so many ways that you don't even know. And that's why you need to work on your personal brand and make sure that you have a very strong personal brand. There are so many free resources online, on YouTube, on Google, that will help you in building your personal brand. I know that I've said it probably a million times, but you require a lot of confidence to be able to build that brand and keep the brand.
So as you're creating brands and building brands, you should also know that you're a brand. You need to build yourself and leave people with
Absolutely.
memories that anytime they remember, they don't even have to remember you exactly. They can just see something that is similar to what happened with you, and you're the first person that is coming to mind.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and that's
Absolutely.
it with you having a brand. So at the time you left to this company where you worked for 7 years
Mm.
and you moved to another company, what was the shift like for you? Because it's completely different now. You you had stayed long here and you've gone through ranks, and then now you're going into a different space because cultures would always be different and styles and the way people approach things. How are you able to manage the culture shift and every other thing?
And that's where I say mindset shifts. You need to embrace change. And for me, there were different parts of it. So I went first of all from working, always working on the mainland. My jobs were never more than 20 minutes away from home. In fact, my last job before I changed roles was 10 minutes from home. And I went to doing 4-hour commutes. That was already a change. And I felt terribly sick in the first 1 month. That's the first part of it. And that's why I say not everything is professional. Now, the second part was I was hired to do something, and in in about 2 or 3 weeks, they changed my role into something I had never done before. And I had to, so there was the first mindset shift of going from, agency to working on the brand side. While I was still adjusting, they now moved me to doing something I had never done in my life. But I knew that I couldn't be attached to failure. So I immediately made sure that the person who knew the most on that within the space that I was became my best friend. I didn't want there to be any gaps between when that person had the role and when I took that role over. Because remember that you also have an appraisal period where they then decide if they want to keep you or not. And nobody's going to say, oh, that's it's not because that's we hired you for something and we gave you something else. So I knew that I had to, immediately readjust, immediately go back to school. Not literally, but spend a lot of time trying to build myself in that space. And what you find is people then start to take advantage of you when they know that you don't know. They start to throw things at you that are not true just so that they can get away with being lax with their job, or not delivering as much as they can deliver because they know that you don't know better. So I had to immediately jump on it like I've been doing it since I was born. And it was difficult. It wasn't easy. It was difficult. And at the start it was really boring because I'm like, what is this? If you people had told me that this was it, I wouldn't have applied in the first place because this isn't something that I'm interested in. But I immediately had to change my mindset to say this is where you are. And for me, it was an opportunity to have something else that I had never done before on my resume. I realized that this was an opportunity for me to be more better rounded in the marketing space. Because at the time I had done experiential, I've done events, I've done advertising, I've done digital. Now I can also say that I've done media. So for me, it was an opportunity. I took it as an opportunity for myself to learn and for myself to be better rounded in the industry. Because truth of the matter is there are not a lot of people who can say that they've worked in that many parts of marketing because it's not something that happens often. So it's hard to find somebody who has worked in a lot of different parts of marketing. And I knew that it was an opportunity for me to be one of the few people who could say that and who could have that to their name.
That's great. So you saw it as an opportunity, and when you're dealing with opportunities, you should know you need to be resilient and you need to get it done. So this is an
Absolutely.
opportunity you have to prove yourself. So I'm going to be taking
Absolutely.
another question. And this person is saying, I got into a new role, but I am considering leaving because it is stressful and a bit complicated. It's going to make me look incompetent. So I think this is the best time to ask this question because it's similar to what you already had and the
Mm,
experience of the new role. So
mm.
I wouldn't just want to say to this person, don't leave. Then let me know what you have to say. The person can also embrace it as an opportunity, like you said.
So there's something I call good stress. Not all stress is bad. There's something I call good stress, and that is stress that I can learn, I can gain from. So, like I said, except if it's just something that you know that you have absolutely no interest in, or if the work conditions, the conditions surrounding you working in that space are really bad. Otherwise, and that's where resilience comes in. Otherwise, you take it as an opportunity to be able to add something different to your work set, to your skill set rather. So except if it's just something that she has absolutely no interest in, or something that she feels like will not add any value to herself. But if you think about it clearly and you see that if I add this thing to what I'm currently doing, it improves, and again, that's your personal brand. If it improves your personal brand, if it improves your opportunities out there in what I like to call the labor market, if it improves your chances, you should take the pain to grow, to learn it, to grow. You don't have to do it forever. Even if you put your mind to, what, let me do it for 1 year. It might not be something that you are crazy about, but it's something that gives you a better chance than the next person when you're looking for your next role. You can just commit to say, what, I'll take 1 year, I will learn this thing and be good at it. I don't have to do it again, but it can come in handy for me. Otherwise, then, I mean, you can't force it. If it's not something that you really want and you're never going to be interested in, don't force it, because again, like I said, you don't want your name on something that is failure. You don't want your name associated with failure. So if you think that it gives you a better chance out there, take the pain, give yourself a timeline, and work very fast at learning it. And if it's something that you can be very good at, I mean, people usually say, oh, it takes 10 years to be an expert at something, but sometimes you just need maybe that top line knowledge of it to be able to speak confidently about it out there. So I would say, if it's something that will add value to you, just give yourself a timeline to do it, just so that you can confidently say that is something that you can do. Because remember, when you get higher in your career, you are required to know a lot of different things and be involved in a lot of different departments in that organization, not just that one thing that you've been doing. And you having an idea of multiple, facets of an organization or of an industry makes you a stronger candidate when you're growing in your career.
Amazing. So I love this answer. If it's something you know you need to do, learn it and do it. And then something that happens again is that when you probably get into a new role or like a promotion, you don't get to see everything. You might just see a part of it. And then when you get in, it begins to stretch. Now, the stretch is what gets uncomfortable for many persons because you
Absolutely.
feel like I'm now going to be doing this. I didn't bargain for this and I didn't bargain for that. But that's also part of the learning phase. If you can endure that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Resilience.
change is not, yes, change is not comfortable. But if you
Mm,
can stay through, you're going to get used to it. It's just like
abs-
that thing you now know how to do, how you do it fast. You also get to learn this one, and in no
Absolutely.
time you're done. But for that few months, for the 3 months, for the
Mm-hmm.
6 months, can you be patient?
Yes, just take the
Oh,
pain.
So it's really been an interesting and insightful session. 1 hour is fast gone.
I know. It's
And I'm really glad that it's it's a memorable 1 hour. So yes, I have you
glad
need
it
to be able to
was.
have your name on something that works. Anybody that is here, listen and listen again. Have your name on something that works. That means you
Absolutely.
make it work when it's not working, and you have to work it even better when it's working. So this brings us to the end of our session. But before we close out, do you have any parting words for us, Larry?
I mean, there's one part that nobody ever speaks about, and it's finding the balance. So you need to also prioritize your self care because you need to be well to be able to do all these things that we're saying. So I think we should all remember to prioritize our well being, prioritize self care in everything that we're doing because you have to be alive to have a career. You have to be well to be able to
Sure,
get up to work, so
that's
you
true.
need to take care of your physical health, your mental health, your general well-being, because if you're not well, you are is somebody that is well enough to come to the office that people are coming to ask, oh, can you help me with this? And the truth of the matter
That's
is, even in the workspace, the best you'll get is 1 minute silence. Your role has to be replaced. Your role
that's
has to be replaced. They're not being wicked, they're not being mean, they're just being realistic because
because
the
the
job
company
has to
cannot
get
pause
done.
because of you.
Yes, and it's not wickedness. We like to be very emotional about it and say, oh, they replaced her immediately, but somebody has to do the job. And so, my parting words will be we need to find balance, prioritize your well being so that you can, give others your best. You can't pour from an empty cup. So, while we're trying
Yeah.
to be the power career women, we have to be power career women that are alive and well.
You need to be alive to be a power career woman.
Yes. Alive
Thank
and
you
well.
so much. Alive and well to be a power
Absolutely.
career woman. Thank
Absolutely.
you so much for your time, Larry. We are
Thank
super
you
glad
for having
to have
me.
you. Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing with our community. Everyone who has listened, who is listening, and who will still listen to this would be glad they met you here. And
I
yes, you can also
hear that.
connect with Larry online. She's Larry Odufua.
Absolutely.
So you can keep this learning. Now that you've learned from her in 1 minute, in 1 hour, you're going to learn a lot in days, months, years. So she's that one person you want to connect with. And she's happy to mentor. Hopefully we have her on our mentorship program when it's launched. And lucky are
No
you
worries at all.
if she's your
Thank you
mentor.
very much, Ian. Well done. Well done. You're doing really amazing. I know I tell you all the
Thank
time, but well done.
Yes, you do. Thank you so much for all your support and all the
No
behind the
worries at
scene assistance.
No
I'm
problem. Thank you
grateful.
very much.
All right. Thank you so much for coming. See you next time.
Have a good
Bye.
evening. Bye.
You too. And this is the end of an Inspire Her series for this week. We're 3 weeks gone, and we have one more shot at it to wrap this month. This is Women's Month, and I am always excited about this month because for us at Tower Africa, it's a learning month. We said you're learning from women with proven results and women of excellence and already have an established career, and it's not short of it. This is a promise made and a promise kept, and it's one more week to go. So join us again next week for another insightful edition of Inspire Hustlers. I am Onyinye Ezlofo, founder at Tower Africa, and until I see you again, keep learning, keep growing, and stay connected to us. Bye. Have an amazing weekend.